I would like to preface this presentation just by saying I do not have PowerPoint, therefore I am using Google Slides and taking a video and uploading it onto these slides. I found a YouTube clip explaining how to do so. Just in case, for whatever reason, this does not work, I will be sending the video as well along with the presentation, so you could watch this while you're flipping through my presentation as I am going over it. Alright, so without further ado, I present Chromium by myself, Austin Dunphy. Title slide, Chromium. Next slide, what is chromium? Chromium is a chemical element with the symbol Cr and atomic number 24. It is the first element in group 6. It's a steely gray, lustrous, hard, and brittle metal which takes a high polish, resists tarnishing, and has a high melting point. The name of the element is derived from the Greek word chroma, meaning color, because many of its compounds are intensely colored. Next slide, we have the history of chromium. Now, weapons found in burial pits dating from the late 3rd century BC Qin dynasty of the Terracotta Army near Qian, China, have been analyzed by archaeologists. Although buried more than 2,000 years ago, the ancient bronze tips of crossbow bolts and swords found at the site showed unexpectedly little corrosion, possibly because the bronze was deliberately coated with a thin layer of chromium oxide. However, this oxide layer was not chromium metal or chromium plating as we know it. In 1797, Louis Nicolas Vauquelin received samples of crocoite ore. He produced chromium trioxide by mixing crocoite with hydrochloric acid. In 1798, Vauquelin discovered that he could isolate metallic chromium by heating the oxide in a charcoal oven, making him the discoverer of this element. Vauquelin was also able to detect traces of chromium in precious gemstones, such as ruby or emerald. And there we have a picture of Louis on the right. Next slide. How does chromium help you? Trivalent chromium ion is possibly required in trace amounts for sugar and lipid metabolism, although this issue remains in debate. In larger amounts and in different forms, chromium can be toxic and carcinogenic. Some studies have shown that chromium supplements may be helpful for people with type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance or pre-diabetes. There's good evidence that chromium can lower glucose levels and improve insulin sensitivity, although not all studies have shown a benefit. It may be that chromium works better if someone is chromium deficient, which is usually only seen if a person has poor overall nutrition. Other studies have also found that chromium may help with polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, which is linked to insulin resistance. Chromium supplements have also been studied for their effects on cholesterol, heart disease risk, psychological disorders, Parkinson's disease, and other conditions. However, these study results have been contradictory or unclear. And there we have a picture of chromium on the right. Next slide. Where can I get chromium and how much do I need? Now, most people get enough chromium from food. Foods that are good sources of chromium include vegetables such as broccoli, potato, green beans, whole grain products like whole wheat bread, beef and poultry, fruits including apples and bananas, milk and dairy products as well. Experts don't know how much chromium people need, so there is no recommended dietary allowance for chromium. Instead, experts have come up with a minimum amount of chromium that people should get. This adequate intake of chromium includes women, aged 19 to 50, which is 25 micrograms a day. Women aged 50 and older, or 20 micrograms a day. Men aged 19 to 50, 35 micrograms a day. Men aged 50 and over, 30 micrograms a day. Many people get more chromium than this. However, no one knows exactly how much more is safe. Some researchers suggest that 1,000 micrograms a day should be considered the upper limit. Excessive doses of chromium may actually worsen insulin sensitivity. Then on the right, we see a picture of more chromium. Now, if we go to the next slide, interesting facts about chromium. Chromium is the 22nd most abundant element in Earth's crust, with an average concentration of 100 ppm, or parts per million. Chromium is remarkable for its magnetic properties. It is the only element, when solid, which shows antiferromagnetic ordering at room temperature and below. Above 38 degrees Celsius, it transforms into a paramagnetic state. Chromium-3 salts, especially chromium alum and chromium-3 sulfate, are used in the tanning of leather. The chromium stabilizes the leather by cross-linking the collagen fibers. Chromium tanned leather can contain between 4 and 5% of chromium, which is tightly bound to the proteins. Ending this slide, I have another picture of chromium, and then on the next slide you will see my works cited, which concludes my PowerPoint presentation over the element of chromium, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you very much.